Welcome to the NHL Playoff Preview Show, Snipes and Insights, powered by PuckPedia. It's Keith Kavanaugh as your host, along with Tyler Madarasz. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Keith. Good to be here.
And before we get started, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to CoolBet. Stay cool, bet responsibly. CoolBet is an official sponsor of PuckPedia. If you go to puckpedia.com/CoolBet, you're able to double your deposit up to $200 as a new user. And CoolBet's really big part of PuckPedia, and we're excited to have them on board for this show and future endeavors.
Excited, man. CoolBet's the best. It's one of the best betting apps up here in Canada, so I love it.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, I think we just kind of get right into these playoff previews. We're going to do a few minutes on each series, give our predictions, and go from there. We're excited. This should be one of the best first rounds of the last few years in terms of excitement level, storylines, and just good NHL hockey. So I think the first series we're going to talk about is the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. The Maple Leafs finished first in the Atlantic Division. CoolBet is giving them a minus 172 odds on winning the series, which is about 60% chance to win, and Ottawa's plus 140, which is about 40%. The Senators were 3-0 this season on the season series, which is interesting, so we'll see how that ends up playing out. Tyler, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Battle of Ontario reinvigorated.
Yeah, I'm fired up, Keith. Also, first of all, only 3 games this season between the Sens and the Leafs. We got to get that number up going forward in the regular season, but the Battle of Ontario has always been fun. I grew up with it being from Toronto, so sign me up. I wanted this since the Ottawa Senators kind of crept up into the postseason. And like when you look at the Ottawa Senators, right, they finally have their goaltender in Linus Ullmark, but the Leafs finally have goaltending as well. Like Anthony Stolarz has been unbelievable, so you almost give the edge to them the way that Stolarz has been playing. Defensively, the Leafs have got a lot better. Brandon Carlo and Chris Tanev have looked great on the back end, and up front, like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. At what point do they show up in the playoffs? So you hope that they do if you're a Leafs fan, and if you're a Sens fan, you're getting Brady Tkachuk back. You're getting Dylan Cousins in his first postseason with the Ottawa Senators. There's a lot of excitement surrounding Sens hockey, but the Battle of Ontario, I'm hoping it's a bloodbath, and I'm hoping it goes 7 games.
It's interesting, too, for Austin Matthews, one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. Actually had a career low this year, only 32 goals. But then on the flip side, you had Mitch Marner eclipsing 100 points for the first time in his career, which is very exciting. When you look at this series, I think scoring is going to be a big part of it. Both these teams have comparable expected goal rates. However, the Leafs are just much better finishing team than the Ottawa Senators are. Special teams will also be interesting because the Senators did actually lead the NHL in penalties drawn this year. So if the Sens are able to get on some early power plays, maybe put a couple away, we'll see how that kind of plays out. And then to your point, the Leafs goaltending this year, it's got to be for Leafs fans the most comfortable they've been with their goaltending situation since I can remember. I mean, Anthony Stolarz has been one of the best goaltenders in the leagues in terms of goals saved above expected. But then also Joseph Waugh has been a really steady, second option, a 1B. It'll be interesting to see how long of a leash Stolarz has in this series, but I'm excited to kind of see how that plays out. And then to your point too, on the Senators side, like Ullmark was the guy they went and got in the offseason. They gave him a big contract extension. He's going to be the guy who has to shut down these high-end players on Toronto to move the Senators on in this series. Having said all that, I think my prediction here is going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs in 6 games. I think the Senators are able to get a couple games, maybe on home ice. Maybe they steal one early in the series in Toronto. But I just think Toronto, this is the year. This is the easiest opponent they've had to face in the first round in quite some time. And they have to prove if they're going to go on a deep playoff run that they have to take care of business in round 1. And I like Toronto to do that.
Yeah, quickly to your Stolarz point, like remember the Leafs had to put in Ilya Samsonov for Game 7 against the Bruins last year. So luckily they don't have to do that anymore. I'm going Leafs in 7. I think the Senators push it to 7. It wouldn't shock me if they somehow upset the Maple Leafs, but I got to go Leafs in 7 on this one.
I love it. Let's move on to our next series, which is the Lightning and the Panthers. It is the Battle of Florida, another super exciting series. If we're looking at the CoolBet odds, this one's pretty close. It has the Lightnings as a slight underdog in this series at plus 103, giving them around a 47% chance, with the Panthers at minus 125, about a 53% chance to win this series. The season series was tied 2-2. We get this series for the second straight year in the first round. Florida took care of business last year pretty handily, winning that series 4-1. Tyler, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so last year was a bit of a disappointment. We all wanted to see the Battle of Florida, and there was really nothing to it, and Florida ended up going on and winning the Stanley Cup. This season, I think it's going to be different. When you look at the Panthers, Keith, like Matthew Tkachuk's coming back. We don't know how healthy he is, but he's always a menace in the postseason. You have Sam Bennett there, who had a great season, who's looking to get paid this summer, and obviously Brad Marchand coming in from the Boston Bruins. So up front, they are deadly. You don't want to play against that team, and Sergei Bobrovsky can probably win another cup if the Cats go on a decent run. And in Tampa, like, you have the second best player in the world that could win the Hart Trophy this year, Nikita Kucherov. He's just been on a different level this season after the last couple unbelievable years. And like, Vasilevsky's still great. Their blue line's still great. They usually dress 7 defensemen, which does give a lot of their forwards a little more ice time. So the Lightning, as you say, are an underdog. I still really like the Bolts in this series.
I tend to agree here. And like you mentioned, I think Vasilevsky has kind of had a little resurgence. The last couple of years, people were like, is he still the same kind of goaltender? And he ended up tied for the league lead in starts this year with 63 starts. I think the Lightning really relied on him. He had really good underlying numbers. And then in addition to that, too, their first line of Kucherov, Point, and Gensel has been absolutely on fire this entire season. It's going to be tough for Florida to kind of shut that down. They do have Aaron Ekblad returning in Game 3 after his 20-game suspension. They have Sasha Barkov leading the charge down the middle, who's one of the best all-around 200-foot players in the NHL. And I think that this is going to be a great series. I think Tampa had a couple deadline ads in Yanni Gourde and Oliver Borgstrand, who might be healthy, might not be healthy. We're not exactly sure of his status. But I think that added some depth to the top heaviness of the Tampa Bay Lightning. In addition, they have guys like Cirelli, Hagel. So I think there's a lot of good things going on in the Lightning. And then the Panthers, the defending champions, they have a lot of miles on them. They've played 2 Stanley Cup runs in back-to-back years. They have a lot of injuries right now. Matthew Tkachuk, obviously the biggest injury issue right now. To that point, I want this series to go 7. I think it's going to go 7, and I got the Tampa Bay Lightning in 7.
I like it. I want it to go 7 as well, but my prediction is Lightning in 6, and the best part is they would do it in the Panthers barn. So yeah, I'm going Bolts in 6, and they look like, to me, the best team in the East right now going into the playoffs.
They definitely scare me, and a potential second-round matchup with the Leafs and the Bolts would be really, really good to watch. Let's keep it on moving on this train. We got our first place Washington Capitals taking on a team who just clinched their playoff berth last night in the Montreal Canadiens. CoolBet has the Washington Capitals as the biggest favorite in the first round. They're minus 278, which is a 70% chance to win this series. Montreal is plus 220, which is giving them a 30% chance to win this series. The Capitals won the season series 2-0-1, getting points in all 3 games, winning 2 of those games. Wow, I mean, what a year for Washington. What a year for Montreal. This series is actually kind of exciting, even though it's such a wide margin of in terms of who CoolBet thinks is going to win this series. But I think it's actually going to be more exciting. We obviously had Alex Ovechkin break the all-time NHL goal scoring record, which is just incredible to watch towards the end of the season. I think that, and then you also have on the Montreal side, Ivan Demidov's debut was super exciting the other night. He scored and had an assist in his first game. You also had Lane Hudson, who's an incredible rookie this year. He tied the NHL record in assists with 60 for a rookie. He beat Chris Chelios' franchise record of 57. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. Ryan Leonard, too, came out of college from BC, scored an empty net while Ovechkin scored those 2 goals in Chicago. There's just a lot of good stuff going on in this series, and I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think a lot of people are that amped up for it, but I am. Like, the Montreal Canadiens coming into the postseason, they get in Game 82. It was fun to watch. Game 81, Demidov gets an assist. He scores a goal, and it's going to be interesting to see if he factors into things. Like in that final game where they got in against Carolina, he only played like 10 and a half minutes, so maybe he's not used that much by Martin St. Louis, especially in his first NHL postseason, but definitely an electric player that can get the Bell Center rocking. So the Habs kind of just got to use momentum if they want to beat the best team in the East in the regular season. They'll have to get good goaltending by Samuel Montembeault. They'll have to have their captain, Nick Suzuki, lead the way like he's done all season. That guy hasn't missed a game in his entire career. It's been absolutely insane what Nick Suzuki's been able to do. So hopefully they can find some magic. But on the other side, you mentioned a lot of the players, like Ryan Leonard's going to be fun to watch in the postseason. Alexander Ovechkin, we'll see if he can keep going and score some big playoff goals against the Montreal Canadiens. And the goaltending is key for me. Like, is Charlie Lindgren starting in Game 1? Is Logan Thompson healthy enough to start in Game 1? That is a huge thing. I know Lindgren's been really, really good, but they'd obviously love Thompson in there. And then one more injury, Alexi Protas. He got a skate cut to the foot. It looked like it was a tough injury. So if he misses round 1, that's very tough for Spencer Carberry to replace him, but Ryan Leonard could step in and maybe be that guy that can maybe score some goals for them.
And Protas was really a big presence in the top six this year. He played some with Ovechkin and Strome. He also played with Dubois and Wilson. So he was able to kind of fluctuate back and forth and had pretty good results on both of those lines. And then to your point, Logan Thompson, he had the third in the NHL and 26 goals saved above expected. But the two guys ahead of him had played 20 more games. So he actually had a better rate per game in terms of goals saved above expected. He's been one of the best goaltenders this year. He was rewarded handsomely with a contract extension midseason. And it would be a big loss for the Capitals if they have to go out and aren't able to play him and have to go to Charlie Lindgren. But like to your point, Charlie Lindgren's been solid, but he's not as good as Logan Thompson's been playing right now. And I think, too, if Washington is to not win this series, I think what's going to happen is they might have a little bit of a shooting regression just because they have been the best in the NHL at 5-5 shooting this year with 10.69% shooting percentage. So I think if Montreal is going to win, maybe they get lucky with some regression and then also they capitalize on their opportunities. Having said that, though, I really like Washington to win this series. I know we're going chalk kind of off the board, but I do like Washington. I actually like them in 5. I think it's going to be a little gentleman's sweep. I think Montreal, the Bell Center is going to be rocking. They're going to win one game in their home barn, probably game 3, especially if they're down 2-0. But I like Washington to kind of take care of this series. I think there is a chance for a little letdown after the OV goal chase. Like maybe the players is kind of like just an emotional kind of roller coaster to kind of let down. But at the same time, they played so well. They've retooled really nicely. And Spencer Carberry is a really good coach, I think, at this league. And I think he's going to help push them through.
Yeah, so do I. And we're in agreement for the first time. I have the Caps in 5. I'd love to see the Bell Center get a couple more playoff games, but I just think the Washington Capitals are that good of a team. And to your point, Spencer Carberry's been that good of a head coach that he can get that team going. Montreal would need some sort of magic like they had in that pandemic shortened season when they made the Cup final, but I just don't see it happening.
Yep. Let's keep this train rolling here. The next series, we got the Carolina Hurricanes against my New Jersey Devils. This is also another kind of wide discrepancy on the series. Coolbet's given the Hurricanes minus 270 odds to win this series, which is around 70% chance, and the Devils are plus 215 at 30% chance to win this series. The season series was tied 2-2. The big storylines with this is obviously going to be Jack Hughes' injury, one of the most dynamic players. The Devils 1C. He's out for the entire playoff run, so that's going to be a big blow to them. The good news, though, is their injury help is kind of coming on the way with Dougie Hamilton. He played Game 82 yesterday, and he'll be in the lineup for Game 1. I think that really helps the Devils. They're kind of teetering with their 6 defensemen being Simone Nemec, Seamus Casey, or Dennis Chowalski. And now to be able to have Dougie Hamilton kind of come into the lineup and not have one of those guys in the lineup who have all struggled a little bit in their own right, I think that adds a ton for the Devils. And then on the flip side, the Hurricanes, what an interesting year for the Hurricanes. They obviously at the beginning of the year were doing really well, and then they ended up making a crazy trade for Mikko Rantanen. They ended up getting rid of Jack Drury and Marty Necas to the Colorado Avalanche. They only kept Rantanen around for 12 games before flipping him again at the trade deadline to the Dallas Stars, which we'll get into later because that's actually a crazy storyline in itself. But the Hurricanes then got Logan Stankoven from the Stars and some draft capital, and he's fit in pretty nicely there. He's what they call a classic Carolina Hurricanes type of player. And the Hurricanes, they're just a system team, right? They have a lot of good players, no like superstars, but Jacob Slavin's one of the best defensive defensemen in the league. You have Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, Andrei Svechnikov at the top of that lineup. And I think that the Hurricanes are pretty well positioned to take care of business in this series.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The only way I think New Jersey can do something and maybe upset the Carolina Hurricanes is if Jacob Markstrom's the best player in the series. That's why the Devils brought Markstrom in. They needed that number 1 goaltender. They got him. And Jake Allen's been good at his backup, but like Jacob Markstrom has to be the best player in the series. Hamilton coming back's great. The blue line I really, really like. I don't think they're going to get over the loss of Jack Hughes. Not having your top line center, one of the most dynamic players in the NHL for the entirety of the playoffs, if you can get out of the first round, is just absolutely killer. So that's why I'm giving the edge to the Carolina Hurricanes. You mentioned a lot of their great players. Their blue line's so fun to watch. Like, how good is Jacob Slavin? We saw it on display at the Four Nations Face-Off for Team USA. And man, Rod Brendamore, one of the best coaches in the NHL, he raised a cup as the captain of the Carolina Hurricanes. You wouldn't want to play for anyone else in that city.
Exactly. And let me pause me if you heard this before. The Carolina Hurricanes were the best in the NHL at 5v5 this year. They had a 56% expected goal share. That's how their system goes. They get a lot of opportunities, a lot of quality shots. The Devils have been 48% on expected goal share since Jack's injury compared to 52% with him. And for the goaltending, I think, like you mentioned, Jacob Markstrom probably has to be the best player in this series, but you could actually argue that Jake Allen has been the better goaltender throughout the duration of this season. Just looking at goals saved above expected, he's kind of had a higher rate per game than Jacob Markstrom has had. Markstrom has looked better as late, and he did have some injury in the middle of the season that could have been holding him back a little bit. They signed him to be the one goalie, so we'll see if he's on top of his game. That's really the only way that they kind of take over. But then also Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt, two really, really good and underrated players, I would say. I mean, watching Jesper Bratt on a day-to-day basis, like his game is so good. His edge work is incredible. He's super strong on the puck for how like small he is. And I think he sets up a lot of his teammates very well. But I think I'm going to have to, unfortunately, go with the Carolina Hurricanes. I think they're going to win this in 6 games. I was between 6, 7, 5, but I think 6 is the right number here. I think New Jersey's going to be able to win a couple. They played in the playoffs 2 years ago, and I think Carolina won that series in 5 games. It wasn't really a contest. And that was with Jack Hughes in the lineup, but obviously their goaltending and defense wasn't as strong. And I think that part of the game has gone better for New Jersey, so I'll give them 6 games here.
Yeah, I'll do the same. I think Sheldon Keefe helps this team win a few hockey games with some of his good decisions behind the bench, and maybe Jacob Markstrom steals 2 games that maybe he shouldn't. So I'm going Carolina in 6 as well. And is this the year the Canes make a run? You never know, but it's happening at some point, I think.
Yeah, they've been too good for too long to not be able to make a run and kind of get out of the Eastern Conference. So we'll see if this is the year. The Eastern Conference does feel wide open. And that's a wrap on our Eastern Conference first round preview. So let's just shift right into gears and kind of go to the Western Conference. We have the Winnipeg Jets versus the St. Louis Blues. Winnipeg won the division. They're getting minus 238 odds to win this series from CoolBet, which is 67% chance, versus St. Louis's plus 190 odds, giving them a 33% chance to win this series. Winnipeg won the season series 3-1 this year. I think the biggest storyline for this series is, will Connor Hellebuyck perform in the playoffs? He's had unanimous back-to-back Vezina Trophy winners. He's the first guy I think I saw in 30 years to win solo back-to-back Williams M. Jennings Trophy as the least goals against allowed per season. I mean, he played really well at Four Nations, which is a pseudo-playoff situation there, and he's been so good in the regular season. I hope he can do it this year.
Yeah, so do I. It's been really fun watching him this season. It was fun watching him at Four Nations as well, as you say. And Connor Hellebuyck, like Jacob Markstrom, will probably be the best player in this series. That's why the Winnipeg Jets are most likely getting out of round 1. But obviously, Mark Scheifele had a really good season. Gabe Vilardi potentially missing round 1 might be tough, but they found some magic with Alex Iafallo in their top 6, with Cole Perfetti lately. Nikolai Ehlers is another story. Hopefully he can come back if the Jets make it to round 2, but they are just a well-oiled machine, especially in Scott Arniel's first year as a full-time head coach. We saw him behind the bench take over a few times for Rick Bowness last year, but Scott Arniel has been a really, really good story. And another storyline, Keith, it's the battle of the Schenn brothers. How about Braden Schenn, the captain of the St. Louis Blues, who we thought was moved at the deadline, and then he wasn't, against his brother, Luke, who was traded from Pittsburgh to Winnipeg at the deadline. So I love those kind of storylines, but you got to think Braden Schenn needs to somehow, some way, will this St. Louis Blues team to victory if they're going to have any chance.
Yeah, I love that storyline. You love when two brothers are able to kind of lace it up against each other. We also have the storyline that Jim Montgomery was fired by the Bruins, 10, 15 games into the season. Doug Armstrong saw that and then basically was like, we need to hire this guy, let go of their coach, Drew Bannister, to hire Jim Montgomery. And then Jim Montgomery kind of righted the ship over in St. Louis and got these guys into the playoffs. So I think that's definitely something to look at in terms of coaching. Like, you probably have to give the edge to Jim Montgomery just because of his experience as opposed to Scott Arniel, who's done a great job, but he is a first-year head coach. Also, special teams is going to play a factor here. Winnipeg had the top power play this year. They were humming, whereas St. Louis is 27th in penalty kill percentage this year. So St. Louis is going to have to stay out of the box and try and remain as 5-on-5 as much as possible if they want to remain in the series. I also love Winnipeg in the playoffs. The whiteouts are absolutely sick. It looks like a great environment to go to. The fans really rally behind this team. Winnipeg's a small city, and when the playoffs are happening, everyone's wearing Winnipeg Jets gear throughout town. The city closes down for these games, so I think that could play a big factor, home ice for Winnipeg. And I think, will Dylan Holloway be able to play? He was obviously offer sheeted from Edmonton to St. Louis in the offseason. He's played super well this year. A player that Edmonton probably wishes they had in their lineup right now, but unfortunately he's on St. Louis, but he's injured. So I think that could be a big loss. And then I also saw Robert Thomas wasn't at practice today. So that's something to keep eyes on as well. He's their first line center, great player. So I think that's big. And also Jordan Binnington in goal. He's been really clutch in these playoff kind of moments. He willed them to their Stanley Cup victory in 2019 and also Canada's Four Nations. He was fantastic in that final game against USA. So I think for me, I think I'm going to go here. The Winnipeg Jets are going to win this series, but I got it in 7 games. I think that this is going to be low-key a pretty long series. I think St. Louis is they had a really big win streak, and then they kind of tailed off a little bit at the end of the year. But I think I like what Jim Montgomery's doing, and I think this is going to be a tough one for Winnipeg. And I think maybe Connor Hellebuck slips up a little bit in a couple games, but then powers through at the end to have a great Game 7, maybe a shutout in Game 7.
Yeah, you almost wish that 12-game winning streak could have been a little later on in the season and they could have rolled that momentum into the postseason. I love it. The Winnipeg Jets would need that whiteout that you mentioned to come out in full force if it does go 7, but I'm going Jets in 6. I think the St. Louis Blues win a couple games just because of their forwards. Robert Thomas, who you mentioned, who's unreal. I think he's going to play and battle through whatever happened to him in that one game. And obviously Jordan Kyrou had a great season as well. Pavel Buchnevich too. So I think the Blues do take a couple games because of their great forwards, but the Winnipeg Jets win it in 6.
Let's keep it moving. So we're going right to my favorite series, I think, of round 1. This one is filled with storylines. We have the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. So the Stars are looking at plus 106 odds on CoolBet to win the series, which is 45% chance. The Avs are getting minus 147, which is about a 55% chance. Colorado won the season series 2-1. Wow. I mean, we got the Mikko Rantanen revenge tour, right? Played his entire career with Colorado, won a Stanley Cup, was obviously then traded to Carolina, and then subsequently again traded to Dallas. I mean, we also have, 2 top 5 teams playing this year, which I think a lot of people are a little frustrated. They want the 1-8 playoff format in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, so you don't get 2 possible cup contenders facing off of round 1. But at the same time, it really drives excitement, and Gary Bettman seems to really like this format. You also get Gabe Landeskog making his return, possibly. He played 2 AHL games. It was his first professional hockey action in 3 years since they won the Cup in 2022. What a story that would be if he ends up playing in the lineup, the Avalanche captain. I can see him fitting in on the third line there, not giving him maybe a full top 6 role, but sort of like a depth role on that team. I mean, he's still a great player, hopefully. I mean, his underlying numbers in 2022 were still really exceptional, so we'll see what kind of player he is. But just the storyline itself, and you're obviously rooting for the human being. And also, too, the Miro Heiskanen injury is huge in this series. He's one of the best defensemen in the league. He's clearly Dallas's best elite defenseman. And I think if he's out for the entire first round, that's going to be a big loss. I saw some analytic models are pricing him in around games 3 or games 4 return. But then you also hear some other people saying he's probably definitely going to be out for round 1. So we'll kind of keep up to date on that situation. But that is a huge, huge loss for Dallas.
Yeah, the Rantanen storyline's big, but I think that might be bigger. Like having Miro Heiskanen in this series, I think would lean a lot of people towards Dallas, but not having him on the back end is tough. They got Tyler Seguin back finally after missing, I think he was out since December 1st. So getting Seguin back was a big thing for their forwards and for Peter DeBoer, but I think Dallas is going to be in tough. Like they're playing some of the worst hockey we've seen from a playoff team heading into the postseason. They lost 7 games in a row. They played Jason Robertson in the final game. They played everybody, and then Robertson got injured. He's leaving the rink in a knee brace. So it seems like just a disaster heading into the postseason for Dallas. So I don't know if I like them all that much. Jake Ottinger's a great goaltender, so he can win you some games. And on the other side, I like the Gabe Landeskog mention because play him on the first line. Like if you're Jared Bednar, just play him with the Nate Dogg, play him with Nate McKinnon, give him those minutes. If maybe it's not working, you can shift them down to the third line, and then you might have some preferable matchups against Pete DeBoer's forwards. But I love this series as well. We can almost even call it the Yoel Kiviranta revenge series instead of just Mikko Rantanen revenge. But I love this series. I'm with you. This is my favorite series of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see, you think the Avalanche are probably going to start Mackenzie Blackwood in net, but Wedgwood actually got a decent amount of starts down the stretch and looked like he might have been the better goaltender. So I think, obviously, the goaltending edge is going to go to Dallas. It's also interesting, too. So Rantanen has not produced as well without Nathan McKinnon. So he's had a 55% expected goal share with Nathan McKinnon, and they're almost 2,000, 5v5 minutes over his career. And then he's had 700 minutes without Nate, and he's only had a 42% expected goal share, so a 13% drop-off. So it is interesting to see that his lines aren't able to generate as much offense without Nate, which makes sense, but also you question how elite Mikko Rantanen is. Having said that, though, like you said, Dallas is in just not good form heading into the playoffs. That's about the worst form you want. 7-game losing streak, losing one of your top players to injury, and then your best defenseman probably isn't playing this entire series, maybe towards the later end of the series. So I think all that said, I think I have to go Colorado in 6. I would, at the beginning of the season, I think I like Dallas as one of my Cup favorites, and I still think they have the team to get there, but they just got drawn up a bad first-round matchup. Colorado made a lot of good moves at the trade deadline, too. Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, they got Jimmy Vesey, too, as a depth forward. I think that Eric Johnson, too, is a great locker room guy, a guy who was one of their leaders in their Cup run as well. So I think they made some good moves at the trade deadline. I think that's going to put them over the edge here.
Oh, yeah, and they have Cale Makar. I think that's a
big
part of it. Cale Makar is pretty good, so that's going to be a big part for the Colorado Avalanche, having their number one defenseman healthy when the Dallas Stars don't. Maybe the Dallas Stars are just tricking us, Keith. Like, maybe they're just playing horrible hockey and hoping everyone picks Colorado in the series. But I'm with you. I'm going Colorado in 6 as well. And, man, I think Colorado, if they can get by Dallas, maybe they're a little beaten up here and there, but I think they're going to go on a little run to the final again.
Regardless, I'm fired up for that series. I think it's going to be a great one. Let's keep it moving. Let's go with the first place in the Pacific, the Vegas Golden Knights against the Minnesota Wild. Vegas is looking minus 250 on the series priced by CoolBet, which is giving them a 68% chance to win. The Minnesota Wild are plus 200, which is giving them about a 32% chance to win. Vegas clean swept the season series. They were 3-0 against Minnesota. I think Vegas they kind of cruised at the end of the year, right, to get to that first spot in the Pacific. They let Edmonton and LA kind of beat up on each other a little bit to jockey for that second and third spot. Minnesota, too, has been an interesting team. They looked like they were doing pretty good at the year, and then they were falling, and now they're back up. They're kind of like a roller coaster. They had a couple big injuries, right? Kirill Kaprizov was out for an extended period of time, as was Joel Eriksson Ek. I'm interested to see if Zeev Buium draws into this series and makes his NHL debut. They signed him to the ELC, but they haven't played him in the regular season, so I'm interested to see if he makes his debut in the playoffs.
Yeah, what a time that would be for Zeev Buium to make his debut in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think that would be a lot to ask for a young defenseman, but seems like he's been able to handle himself in some pretty big games in his career so far. The Minnesota Wild, to me, they're healthy. You mentioned Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek were out for an extended period of time, but hey, they come back. Joel Eriksson Ek scores 4 goals. Kaprizov scores a couple, including an OT winner. Doesn't seem like they missed much time at all. But man, like we talk about the Maple Leafs a lot being first-round exits in the East. The Minnesota Wild are the carbon copy of that in the Western Conference. And it's not like they're the favorite in this series or anything, which some years they have been, and they've been ousted in round number 1. I just don't think they can compete with the Vegas Golden Knights. Like Jack Eichel's back. He's playing great. Mark Stone is healthy. We know he's healthy, or we think he's healthy. And like on the back end, like Pietrangelo and Hanifin have been great. Shea Theodore is back to 100% health. The Vegas Golden Knights are an absolute train, and I don't think the Minnesota Wild are stopping them.
Yeah, goaltending could be a concern for Vegas. Aiden Hill's been, up and down this year. He's a little banged up as well. Ilya Samsonov is their backup. They have Akira Schmid, too, as their third goalie. So they don't really have like a solidified situation unless Aiden Hill is kind of healthy and takes the reins there. And you look at the Minnesota Wild, Philip Gustafsson's been really, really good this year. And then they have Marc-Andre Fleury if they need to kind of sub him out, and who's also been pretty good in terms of someone who's 40 years old. He's had a really strong year. This is going to be a great series too, but I think I really I'm going to have to go with Vegas. I'm going to have to go with Vegas in 4. I got them sweeping the Minnesota Wild. Yeah, I think there's going to be one sweep in the first round, and I think it's going to be this series. Minnesota's penalty kill is 30th in the NHL this year. Vegas has the second best power play. Vegas is going to obliterate them on special teams this year, and I think that if they get a couple of power plays each game, I think it's going to be game over. I think Minnesota's going to have a tough time staying out of the box with how strong, how physical, how fast Vegas is. And so I really like that. I think Eriksson Ek versus Eichel down the center is going to be something I'm really keen on in terms of how they match up against each other. But I really think Vegas is just kind of roll with this series and then get ready for round 2 against the winner of our final series that we'll preview.
I like how brave you are picking a sweep. It's so tough to sweep right now in the NHL, but that would give Marc-Andre Fleury his final game in the NHL in Minnesota. I'm still doing that. I'm going Vegas in 6. I think the Wild do win a couple games on the back of Kirill Kaprizov or some of their top players like a Matt Boldy or an Eriksson Ek, but I think Fleury does go out on home ice, whether it's in game 4 or game 6. The Wild, I don't think, stand a chance in this series.
Unfortunately, I tend to agree. And now our last series, and pause me if you've heard this before. It's the LA Kings versus the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the NHL playoffs. Oh, you have heard that before? It's the 4th straight year that has actually happened. Edmonton is 3-0 in the last 3 meetings they've met in the playoffs, including a decisive 4-1 series win last year. If we're looking at the odds, this is the closest it's been between the two. LA's getting minus 103, which is about a 48% chance to win the series, versus the Edmonton's minus 118, which is about a 52% chance. And I tend to agree with those odds. I think that if LA is going to win the series, I think out of the last 3 seasons, and then the fourth being this year, I think this gives them the best chance just based on their roster construct, where Edmonton's kind of been at. The Mattias Ekholm injury is massive. He's one of their best defensemen, if not their best defenseman all season, and him not being available for the team is a huge, huge blow. It forces every defenseman to play a spot above the lineup where they should be slotted. You're going to have Darnell Nurse on that first defensive unit, which last season there were some struggles with him and Cody Ceci pairing. So I think that that is something to keep eyes on. The Oilers are also really, really banged up. Like I mentioned, Ekholm, but then you had Draisaitl and McDavid both missing time. Draisaitl should be back for game 1. McDavid came back a couple games ago, but Trent Frederick's been out. Hyman's been out. Klingberg obviously is out for the year. Vander Kane might come into the team, might not. Like, we're still kind of waiting to see what happens there. But you also have great storyline with the Nurse hit the other night. He got suspended for a game for the Quentin Byfield cross-check. And then you had Philip Deneau and Corey Perry kind of get into it back and forth in the media. So I think there's a lot of good stuff with this series.
Yeah, no B squad for the Oilers, so Philippe Deneau can be happy that they're not trying to hurt them. I am pumped up. I know we've had this for a lot of years in a row, as you said, but like the Kings have been so fun to watch this year. Like the Kemper for Pierre-Luc Dubois trade turned out to be unreal for Rob Blake. So you finally have a really
for
good
both teams, even I would say.
Without a doubt, yeah, PLD has been unreal under Spencer Carberry. So it has worked out for both teams, but like LA's been missing that goaltender, especially in these series against the Edmonton Oilers. And it's not like the Oilers have an amazing goalie. Like Stuart Skinner is okay, but he's not going to win you a series. So you got to give the edge to the LA Kings. Defensively, the Kings have been really good. Drew Doughty coming back has helped. I know he's a little older, but still nice to see number 8 there on the blue line for the LA Kings. And up front, they're such a fun team to watch. They move the puck great on the power play, even strength like Byfield, Kempe, Fiala. Warren Fogel's been a good little piece this year for the LA Kings as well. So I like them this year. They're also the best team on home ice. So the LA Kings, I do think they finally get by the Edmonton Oilers. It's tough picking against McDavid and Draisaitl, as you know, Keith. Like tough to pick against a couple of the best players in the world, but it just doesn't seem like it's the Oilers' year like it was last year.
I tend to agree. And then mentioning some of those LA Kings players, if you look at the Byfield, Fiala, Lafreniere line, they're the second best goals for percentage in the NHL among 79 line combinations who have over 200 5-on-5 minutes this year. So they've been really getting results on 5-on-5. The Oilers also aren't finishing as well as they have been in the past. They only have an 8% shooting percentage at 5-on-5, and they're 8th in the NHL in the power play. But in the last few years, they've been one of the top power play teams in the year. They haven't been clicking at the normal rate that they have been, and they've been rotating different guys to try and see who the best 5 options are for them on the power play. I think, can the Kings contain 29 and 97 is a big factor. Philip Deneau is one of the best defensive forwards in the league, and Quentin Byfield's definitely taken that next step to kind of be a 200-foot two-way center. So I think that'll be interesting. The Oilers' defense has been exceptional this year, 2.13 expected goals against per 60, which is the best in the NHL. And I think to that point, I'm going with the LA Kings. I think I have to. Like you mentioned, the home ice is so big. They've been really, really good. Edmonton's going to have to steal 1, maybe 2 games in LA, and I just don't know if I see that happening this year. I got this series going 7, and I got LA winning it in 7. I think the goaltending is a big factor too. Darcy Kemper, for the most part, the last few years hasn't been as great, but then this year it feels like he's really picked it up a notch. Maybe the system in LA is really helping him out. Maybe the goaltending coach there. But I think that LA is kind of well-equipped to beat Edmonton finally, and I think they finally pushed through and beat the Oilers.
Yeah, the Kings just kind of have the edge everywhere. It's on home ice, in goal, on the back end. You mentioned the Ekholm injury is huge. I know they brought Jake Wallman in, but you got to give the LA Kings the edge there. And then up front, like the 2 good players in Edmonton are really, really good. But as a whole, you got to give the edge to the Kings. So I'm going Kings in 7 as well. I think McDavid and Draisaitl steal some games for the Oilers. So Kings in 7. And I'm going a little further, Keith. I think they get a dramatic Game 7 OT winner. I don't know from who, but I think this goes to Game 7 overtime, and the Kings pull it off finally.
That was my next question to you, but I'll do you one better. I'll say it's Quentin Byfield. I'll say it's the guy. Thought. Okay. Well, if it goes to Game 7, we know who we're betting on, and we know who we're going to use. We're going to use our friends at CoolBet. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, PuckPedia.com/CoolBet. And get your bet responsibly. Stay cool. Bet responsibly. That's the CoolBet way. You can double your deposit up to $200. And yeah, we're going to be doing Snipes and Insights. We're going to be doing a daily live show around 4 p.m. every day, going over the games for that night, getting you all set up. We're going to have some fun bets on Cool Bet, like I mentioned. And we're just going to kind of preview these games and kind of see what happens throughout the playoffs. We're really excited. And anything else, Tyler?
No, I'm fired up. The playoffs start Saturday night, so let's get to the weekend already.
And if you're trying to find out, who's in the lineup, who's out of the lineup, all that stuff, just go right to PuckPedia.com. They have the lineups right there. All the depth charts are going to have the starting goalies. You're going to have all the salary cap numbers. Anything you could need on PuckPedia.com.